Maruti have just launched their mini SUV, the S Presso. And as if on cue, Renault have updated their Kwid. Well, we had to put the two head to head to find out which one is better. It was the Renault Kwid with its mini SUV-like styling that caught the fancy of the Indian buyer and actually rocked the boat in the budget hatch market, which was dominated by Maruti Suzuki until then. So the genesis of the Espresso and its SUV-like styling could very well be thanks to the Kwid that created a new niche. The Espresso's upright pillar, flat bonnet and relatively high roof make it look more of an SUV than the Kwid. However, the tall stance does throw the proportions off a bit and it tends to look narrow and tall. The toothy grille is slim and in your face, and that leaves a very large chin area that looks a bit bare. There are the squared off wheel arches, but they make the 14-inch tires look small. And then there's the side profile that's very plain. The styling is really not one that will appeal to all. You can add on a lot more optionals that will improve the look, but it is still the Kwid with its more classic hatchback proportions that is the more handsome car. The updates to the facelift Kwid have made it more attractive for sure. There are the 14-inch rims, the restyled front with the split headlamp, which has the standard LED DRLs on top and the headlights lower, along with the chunky surrounds to the headlights make it an interesting front. The new LED guides on the tail lamps, the orange accents and the smoke grey wheel covers add flair to the climber version. So undoubtedly it's the Kwid that has the more appealing looks, but once you step on the inside, it's a different story. The interior of the Espresso is quite quirky and funky. There are lots of cuts and curves on this dashboard. It's got body-colored highlights around the AC vents and around this attention-grabbing central part of the console, which is very mini-like. It houses the speedometer right here in the center. You've also got the touchscreen info display that comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Below that, you have the manual controls for the AC and a lot of storage area. There are also a lot of features. Let's take a look. Both cars come with their fair share of creature comforts. Power steering, remote locking and front power windows are standard on top spec variants of both cars. But only the Kwid offers rear power windows. However, that is an option. Again, while the digital speedometers are amongst the things you find on both models, the tachometer and a reverse camera are exclusive to the Kwid. The Maruti, on the other hand, goes one up with steering-mounted audio controls and internally adjustable mirrors. As for the infotainment system, the Kwid's new 8-inch touchscreen is a size larger than the Espresso's 7-inch unit. Though both screens are equally slick and handily come bundled with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Switching focus to the all-important matter of safety, it's reassuring to know that both cars comply with India's latest crash protection norms. Top-spec Espressos do get dual airbags as standard. A passenger airbag is an option on the Kwid. On the whole, while both cars are pretty fairly matched on equipment, on the inside the Kwid just feels like a smaller car. Driver and passenger do sit closer together and there's less headroom in general. The updated cabin, however, does have its upsides. The dashboard has been revised. The top glove box area now houses the optional passenger airbag. The touchscreen is now a larger size, and the new part digital dials add in a tachometer too. The bright seat upholstery looks snazzy, while the new steering with leather inserts also enhances the appeal. Unfortunately, overall the cabin quality hasn't taken the same jump up. The Kwid's plastics are scratchy and don't feel as nice as the textured surfaces you'd find in the Espresso's interior. There is no doubt that the Espresso's interior is overall the better of the two, and that's just not in the way that it looks or quality, but also in terms of space. Now, as far as space goes, it's the Espresso that definitely impresses because you've got ample legroom over here. In fact, the front seat's quite high, so you can stretch your feet out and you can get really comfortable in this back seat, even if a tall person is sitting in front. And I may not be tall, but trust me, there's enough legroom for two tall people to sit one behind the other over here. You also sit quite nice and high, so visibility is good. You've got a nice big window area, so it feels open and airy. And as far as 3 passengers go, they will be more comfortable here in the Espresso as well. Having said that, the point to note is that 3 passengers will still be a tight fit in either of the cars. In the backseat, the Kwid's slightly knees-up seating position gets tiring on long journeys. But the climber does get a center armrest and it does up comfort to an extent. What is a pity is that both cars come with minuscule rear headrests that will offer limited whiplash support. Both cars offer a fair amount of storage space with bottle holders for front doors and smaller recesses on the dashboard. The Kwid's cavernous glove box is larger, while the Espresso is the only one to offer a bottle holder for rear seat passengers. On airport runs, you'll find the Espresso's better-shaped 270-litre boot slightly more accommodating than the Kwid's larger 279-litre boot. Do note that the updated Kwid's boot size is down from the original's 300-litre figure owing to the incorporation of larger wheel wells. On the power front, the Kwid comes with the same 0.8-litre and 1-litre petrol engines. For this comparison, we've considered the larger one that is the direct match for the Espresso's sole 1-litre unit. Both engines produce the exact same 68 HP of power, are near identical in max torque too, and have to propel similar mass. Unsurprisingly, our preliminary performance test revealed little difference in acceleration and roll-on timings, with the Espresso being quicker to the ton from 40 to 100 in 4th gear and the Kwid faster from 20 to 80 in 3rd. But what the numbers fail to convey is how different the two cars feel to drive. When you're ambling around, the power delivery in the Kwid is a bit hesitant, but as you pick up the pace, it improves and you really get the best of the power higher up in the rev band. The Kwid leaves you working the gearbox much more in town, but out on an open stretch, it does feel like the stronger of the two. That said, when you do accelerate hard, the Kwid's noisier engine becomes even more noticeable. In contrast, the Espresso's engine, that is BS6 compliant, delivers power in a smooth and refined manner. A light clutch and a gearbox that is also smoother than the Kwid's ensure that the Espresso is a breeze to drive in town. The Espresso is the one that's better for city conditions, and that's because the even spread of power means it's nicer to drive in stop-start traffic. You really don't have to work the gears too much. And even if you're in a higher gear, from a lower RPM, all you have to do is just put your foot down and it gets a move on easily. Both models claim near identical ARAI figures for fuel economy, but I'll reserve comment on that till we do our real-world test. You sit quite elevated in the Espresso, more so than the Kwid, and that gives you a really nice commanding view of the road, and even with the upright pillars, is the one that gives you more of the SUV feel from behind the wheel. It also turns on a smaller radius than the Kwid, making it light on its feet and easier for parking. But the overall impression that you get is that out on the road, the Espresso is a light car. Now, behind the wheel of the Kwid, you sit much lower than you do in the Espresso, but overall, it just feels like a tougher built car. It just feels tougher built of the two, and the Kwid feels more sure-footed on the highways as well. There is also less vertical movement when you go quicker, and you get a greater sense of confidence around corners, despite the steering not really offering a great amount of feedback. The Espresso steering in the comparison does feel better weighted, and for a tall car, it still feels stable and planted out on the highway, but quick changes of direction do catch it out. At lower speeds, it is the Espresso that absorbs the bumps better, but as you pick up the pace, that changes. The ride quality of the Kwid may not have the pliancy of the Espresso, but at higher speeds, it definitely feels flatter and more composed. It is a closely matched battle between these two, with each car having its strengths and weaknesses, but ultimately, we did prefer one. The Renault Kwid is the original budget car that gave you a bit of that SUV feel. Now Maruti have built on that with their recently launched Espresso. The Renault Kwid, with its recent updates, has got better. It's now got more features, it's still great value for money, and of course, it is still a very good looking car. The Espresso, on the other hand, may not wow everyone with its looks, but it definitely offers a great experience from behind the wheel. It's spacious, it's comfortable, it's good quality, it drives nicely, it's a city-friendly car, and overall in this comparison, it just feels the better of the two.